Hello everyone, my name is Michael and I am the Crafty Crocheter, and today I thought I would take on a challenge that I don't really call it a challenge, it's something I concocted. This is based on one of Elise Rose Crochet's videos. She had a video out about the top 10 hardest crochet stitches in existence, so I based my challenge off of that. So I created swatches based on the stitches that she listed in her video. So I don't know. I don't think I know how to create hyperlinks and yet. So I'm just gonna say if you look under Elise Rose Crochet's channel, I think it's called the hardest crochet stitches or something to that effect. So I would suggest checking out that video and go down the list because she lists all the stitches that I'm gonna present in this video today, and with their links to each one, so you have an idea of how to work with them and how to perfect them. And I'm also going to include one bonus stitch in this video that she did not include, and this is a stitch that I saw on my YouTube feed, so I saw it and I had to try it out. And this bonus stitch may prove to be challenging for some people or for some crocheters. So without further ado, and then I'm also going to rate. She rated hers like 10 being the easiest and 1 being the most difficult. So I followed suit on that too, but I'm going to compare my ratings against how she rated them. And I'm also going to include the bonus stitch in that rating as well. So it's going to be a total of 11 stitches that I'm going to go over. So alright, so without further ado, I'm going to move on to the first stitch, and I'm just going to go in order in the list that was presented in her description in the video. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the first one, and the first one is called the Jasmine stitch. And I did Google hardest crochet stitch, and the Jasmine stitch came up immediately as one of the most difficult stitches to do, and I tried this 3 times before I perfected it. So and basically it's about tension. For the Jasmine stitch, it's about tension and where to place the hook. So this is my first attempt at it. It doesn't look anything like my third swatch, and I also did, this is my second one. I think it's my first one. This is my first one, excuse me. Yeah, it's like when I first tried this, I was following along with the video that was in the video, and it seemed straightforward. Then when I did my foundation chain, it didn't look anything like the chain in the video. So after reviewing the video and where the person placed the crochet hook, I finally mastered the foundation stitch, and I finally mastered the Jasmine stitch, and this is what it's supposed to look like. You see the little petals, and it's like a hexagon type of design. So in my previous yarn haul video, I did have a big giant skein of beige or color buff yarn that it would look good with this design. So then I'm going to do the rating at the end of the video, so that way I'm going to compare mine against how Elise Rose Crochet's rated hers. So that is the Jasmine stitch. And then the second stitch that was listed in the video was known as the crocodile stitch, or also the dragon scale stitch. And it looks kind of weird to me. Anyway, so this is basically a series of double crochets and single crochets, but this turned out pretty well for my first attempt at it. This is the first swatch. I used leftover yarn for this challenge and to practice these stitches on, but yeah, you can see how it kind of resembles dragon scales. So this would look really nice with a lighter weight yarn for like amigurumi projects, or just for whatever you have in mind for that. Okay, so the third stitch is known as the loop stitch, and when I saw the video for this, I remembered that I made this stitch before with the peacock amigurumi project that I worked on a while back. But this is my first attempt, and I mean the loops are there, but then I realized, oh wait a minute, I did not put my stitches in the right place. So then this is my final result, and this looks a lot better. This backing, so like a solid flat back, and then you got all these little loops that kind of reminds me of shag carpeting. So I think this turned out pretty well. And then the next stitch I am going to review is the star stitch. This is a pretty standard stitch that you'll see in crocheting projects, like crocheting projects. And the trick to this stitch is you have to cluster six loops on your hook and then just pull them all through. But there's a certain order in how you would proceed with that. And again, if you want to know how to make the stitch, I would suggest visiting Elise's video and click on the link for the star stitch. I mean, it's pretty straightforward. Okay, then the next stitch that was listed is known as the bouillon stitch, and mine didn't turn out the way it did in the video. I think it was because I started with a chain of 10, and like it, because it was a multiple of 5, and no, not a multiple of 5. It was, anyway, I think it was like any number of stitches. But again, review that video. Anyway, and then the trick to it is you have to have 2 crochet hooks taped like on top of each other. Let me see, because what I did was I didn't do the crochet hook, the 2 crochet hooks, so I was using this crochet hook, and then I used a like a chopstick or some chopstick, and I taped it together, because the trick of it is you gotta have to, you're looping the yarn around this 6 times to create those little rolls, and then you hook this through and you just pull through, and the yarn goes through all those loops, and then you do just single crochet with that. But yeah, I think it's curved. I don't think it was curved because maybe my tension was off, or maybe the loops were too big. But so the next stitch is known as the waistcoat stitch, and I didn't make a very good swatch of this. Maybe I should have chosen a different color yarn. This is kind of bright. But the trick with this is it's all single crochets, but the difference with the waistcoat stitch is that you're going in between the actual the legs of the single crochet. And again, there's more explanation on it in the video, in that video link, so I would click on that. And also, this is kind of like a dense fabric, so this would be good for like if you're creating dishcloth, wash rags, or dishcloth, like dish rags, or anything like that you would need something real sturdy that's gonna hold up. Then the next one is the Catherine's wheel. I do have 2 swatches that I made for this. And the Catherine's wheel, it's very intricate because you are putting 9 double crochets into a ring, and then you have to be careful not to lose the next stitch because you have to single crochet into that next stitch anyway. I did this yarn, I tried this one first, and I didn't like the way it turned out because you couldn't, I mean, you can kind of see the double crochets and the loops and everything, but then I did another swatch. This one looks a lot better. It demonstrates the color change, which is what the video was originally intending. So this turned out a lot better than the first swatch. But again, you're basically got to know where to put the double crochets and where to do your clusters and so forth. Then the next one is the Alpine stitch. This is basically a series of double crochets and front post double crochets. I mean, this turned out nicely. Again, I could have used a different color yarn, but you can see the posts that are popping out in the design. So basically, they started with a row of single crochets, and then you do a row of double crochets, and then you skip every other post. You work a front post double crochet in it, and then you work a basic double crochet above the skipped post. And then the next one is the Solomon's knot. This is more of a lacy, airy design. And I did 2 swatches. First, I tried one with a weight number 4 yarn. I mean, I thought this turned out alright, but then right around this point here where this finger is, it kind of, I don't know if I was stitching correctly or I missed something. I mean, again, this turned out decent. But I also made another swatch of that. I made this one with a lighter weight yarn, and I thought this turned out really nice. So kind of see-through. But you can see the Solomon's knots in there. And the last one, the 10th one that she had on her video was the Jacob's ladder. And this is what it looks like. Basically, it's a combination of single crochets and double crochets, and then you work in double crochets, and then every 5th one you're chaining 10 to create these loops. and then I just did the color changes, and then towards the end you're basically looping all these loops together, and then you at the top you're doing single crochets. I mean, this would be a nice project for an Afghan or just whatever you have in mind for that. Alright, and then the bonus stitch that I saw this on my YouTube feed yesterday, and so I decided to try it out. It also involves using, well, in the video it involved using a crochet hook and then a knitting needle. It was like our 25mm knitting needle, but I didn't have one on hand, so I ended up using my 25mm crochet hook. So the reason for that is because you are looping, your starting chain is a multiples of 5, and then you are looping over every stitch onto the 25mm knitting needle, and you're just holding the loops there, and then you're working in 5 loops, and then you do single crochets to bind them together. Again, I think the video I saw was from Bee Hooked Crochet. It's called the broomstick stitch, and I will show you what it looks like. See, and then the big gap here is from the needle that all these loops you're wrapping around the needle. So basically, you start with your chain of 5, multiples of 5, and then you're looping all of these loops around that knitting needle, and then you're taking every 5 loops, and then you work 5 single crochets to bind it, except for the first one, because the first stitch is basically your binding stitch and it doesn't count, so you have to do 5 more. And then for the repeats, and then you're doing the same thing for the next row. You're just looping every stitch into the big needle, and then you just pull it all through. But this is what it looks like. Alright, so if I had to rate the stitches from easiest to most difficult, okay, so let me see. I'm going to say that the easiest one, I'm going to agree with Elise on this one and say number 10 is the Jacob's Ladder. I mean, it was just fairly straightforward. It's just a combination of single crochets and double crochets and chains that you're just looping through. So I agree with her. The easiest one is the Jacob's Ladder from her list. Then, let's see, number 9 she had is the Alpine Stitch. Again, I could agree with her on that one, because again, it's just a series of double crochets that you're just doing front post double crochets. But if you're a new crocheter and you don't know how to work front post double crochets yet, I can see where this could be intimidating for some, but once you master that, it's pretty easy. So I'm going to rate this as number 9 as well, which is the Alpine Stitch. Let's see, in number 8, she went with the loop stitch. And let's see, I think for me though, I think I'll go with the loop stitch too, because again, I worked with the stitch in the past with that for one of my past projects, and then once I figured out, oh wait, I had these on the wrong side, then I was able to get this completed and work and have it come out the way it did in the video. So number 8 is going to be the loop stitch. And number 7 she had as the waistcoat stitch. Again, I can agree with her on that, because it's just a series of single crochets, except for when you're working the actual waistcoat stitch, you are taking your hook and going in between the 2 legs that are underneath. See, my middle finger is basically the top loop, and then these 2 fingers here are the legs underneath. So you're putting the needle in between and just doing a single crochet that way. So I agree with her. This would be number 7. So for number 6, she had the crocodile stitch. Trying to think here. I would say this was fairly easy. The crocodile stitch was fairly easy to do once I followed the video. But the only caveat with that is you gotta, see the back of that, how you have to skip. You're skipping these posts here, these double crochets. You have to skip every single one. So if you're not careful to skip those, then your scales are going to be off kilter, and it's not going to turn out the way it's supposed to look. So I guess I would have to agree with her that the crocodile stitch would be number 6 on the difficulty scale. Okay, number 5 she had as the Solomon's knot. And again, I can see where this would be difficult because, especially for something lacier and that could benefit from blocking. So basically the trick is your tension, because you want it kind of loose, because if it's too tight then it's going to turn out real wonky and it won't look right. So basically the trick to the Solomon's knot is you're doing single crochets and you're pulling up yarn a little bit for these actual loops, or these loops here, and then you're working single crochets that way. So I would say between this one and the broomstick stitch would tie for number 5, because again with this one you have to use two hook. You're using a crochet hook and you're using a 25mm either a knitting needle or a crochet hook for 25mm, or you have to find some sort of dowel or some sort of cylindrical object that would be that size, or you can use a ruler to wrap the loops around. But I would say it's a tie between the Solomon's knot and the broomstick stitch for number 5. Number 4 was the star stitch. Let's see what's left. Let me move the ones out of the way. Alright, so so I think I would agree to the star stitch would be number 4, because again you have to know where to cluster and joint, cluster and so forth to get this star design. Again, I could have used a lighter yarn so that the stitches pop out better, but oh, there we go. So basically you're working as a row of single crochets on the bottom, then you got to, I think you do a chain of 3, and then you are clustering 6 loops through the hook and then joining to make that loop. So again, number 4, I agree, is the star stitch would be the most difficult especially if you're new to crocheting. Alright, number 3 she has as the Catherine's wheel. I guess if I had to, I can maybe this one, the solid, not the it's the bullion stitch would be number 3, because again it's not as difficult as the Catherine's wheel, because basically for this you're working a single crochets, and then you're basically using the ideally it's two crochet hooks, but again I use the chopstick instead, and make sure you have a little gap there, and then you're just looping around, and then you're just pulling all of them through, so it's kind of easier for that front. Then you just bind it off with a single crochet. But again, I think it's because this was too high up and made the loops bigger. But I think number 3 would be the bullion stitch, because again tension is important here, and as you can see from mine it looks like an arc. Number 2 would definitely be the Catherine's wheel, because again you're working 9 double crochets into a single stitch, and then as Elise mentioned in her video for that, you can easily lose the next stitch. So I didn't use a stitch marker for that. I mean, she suggested to use a stitch marker, and I think that's a great idea, especially if you're new to crocheting and if it's going to be difficult to lose that stitch, because again that yarn's going to pull up due to the tension of all the 9 double crochets going into that one single stitch. But once I got the basics of it down, I was able to work with this much easier. But it takes up a lot of yarn, because again all the double crochets are going into it. So number 2 would be the Catherine's wheel, and then number 1, and I do agree with Elise 100% on this one, because especially if you're new to crocheting and it's going to be the jasmine stitch, because again, it's a lot of yarn. First off, it's thick, it's squishy and it's thick, and then if you don't know where to put the crochet hook when you're joining the the puffs, then it's gonna look off kilter. Like it was this swatch. It's like off kilter, looks all discombobulated. So, and again, I would suggest checking out that video for that jasmine stitch if you really want to improve your crochet skill set. This would be the one to master. Then you can brag to all your friends, oh hey, I know how I mastered the jasmine stitch. So, and I can say full-heartedly, yes, I did conquer this one. So again, this is a very interesting stitch, so I'm going to use this in the future for another project or just another bigger swatch. Alright, and so there you have it, folks. That's my crochet stitch challenge, the hardest crochet stitch challenge. So I would, if you want to improve your skill set or you just want to give these stitches a try, I would suggest, checking out Elise's channel, her episode on stitches, and then try this out for yourself. And then also let me know in the comments if you have any problems with working those stitches, and then I can offer some assistance if you want, especially for the jasmine stitch, because that was really difficult to do at first, especially if you don't know where to put the crochet hook when you're joining the puffs and to where we are creating the petals too. Alright, so that is my hardest crochet stitch challenge. So again, thank you to all my subscribers, and I hope to keep the channel fresh and going. And again, if you have any ideas or suggestions, let me know. And again, as a friendly reminder, this is a safe space and creative space for everybody, so we're all learning from each other, male, female, whatever. So it does not matter. So if you're into crocheting, you're into crocheting. So don't let anyone say that crocheting is only for a certain subset of individuals, because it's not. And I've been crocheting since I was 14, so, and people are going to say what they're going to say, but water off a duck's back. Right? And I think that's all for today, and I will post more videos in the future, so I gotta get some ideas formulated in my brain. Alright, so hope everyone's day is going well, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Take care of yourself and each other.